Everything you learned in school was presented as absolute truth. Your teachers said it with confidence. The textbooks printed it in black and white. It sounded legitimate because it came from authority. Turns out, a huge portion of what was taught as scientific fact was actually complete fiction, debunked nonsense, or so heavily exaggerated that it became a lie. And the wild part is that these false facts were taught for decades, sometimes centuries, with absolute certainty. Moment 1. You were told that humans only use 10% of their brains. The other 90% just sits there, unused. If you could unlock that potential, you'd have superpowers. Complete nonsense. Brain scans show we use virtually all of our brain, and most of the brain is active almost all the time. Even during sleep, your brain is working. We have no unused neural real estate. The 10% myth became so popular that it inspired entire movies and self-help industries, all based on something that was never true. Moment 2. Your teacher said sugar makes kids hyperactive. Parents believe this so completely that they use it as an explanation for why their kids go crazy at birthday parties. Controlled studies have repeatedly shown that sugar has essentially zero effect on children's behavior and attention span. The expectation of hyperactivity, the belief that sugar will make kids go nuts, is what actually makes parents think their kids are hyperactive. It's the placebo effect applied to parenting. Moment 3. You learned that we have 5 senses: sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. That's it. Wrong. Humans have at least 9 senses, possibly more depending on how you count them. We have balance, proprioception, knowing where your body is in space, pain, temperature sensation, and others. The 5 senses thing is so simplified that it's basically false, but it's still taught in schools because it's easy to remember. Moment 4. Goldfish have 3-second memories. They're basically dumb little creatures that forget everything instantly. False. Goldfish can remember things for months. They can recognize faces. They can be trained. The 3-second memory thing was made up and somehow became accepted as fact. Pet goldfish are more cognitively competent than we've been teaching kids for decades. Moment 5. You were told that blood is blue in your veins and only turns red when it hits oxygen. That's why veins look blue. Completely false. Blood in your veins is dark red, not blue. The reason veins look blue is because of how light travels through skin and reflects off the blood. This is a physics thing, not a biology thing. Blood is never actually blue in a living human body. Moment 6. Great white sharks don't get cancer. Shark cartilage was sold as a miracle cure for cancer based on this false claim. Sharks absolutely get cancer. They get tumors. The entire shark cartilage supplement industry was built on a lie. People spent billions of dollars on a product that doesn't work for something that was never true. Moment 7. You learned that humans have always had consciousness the way we experience it now. Turns out, ancient humans experienced consciousness differently than we do. The concept of a unified self, the internal monologue most of us experience, these are relatively recent developments in human consciousness. Ancient texts show no evidence of this kind of internal dialogue. Our brains evolved the concept of self relatively recently. Everything about how you experience your own mind would be foreign to someone from 3,000 years ago. Moment 8. Carrots improve your eyesight. This became such a mainstream fact that people genuinely believe eating carrots will make you see better. The Nazis started this rumor. British intelligence needed to explain why their pilots suddenly got better at night combat, so they spread propaganda that carrots improved vision to hide radar technology. The myth stuck. Carrots are fine for you, but they won't give you superpowers. Moment 9. You were taught that the Great Wall of China is visible from space. It's not. It's not even close. The wall is too narrow to be visible from standard orbital altitude. You can't see it with the naked eye from space. Astronauts have specifically said they can't see it. But this fact got repeated so much in textbooks that most people believe it as absolute truth. Moment 10. Lemmings commit mass suicide by jumping off cliffs. This became the metaphor for mindless followers. Lemmings just follow each other off a cliff to their deaths. Never happened. Disney literally faked footage of lemmings jumping off cliffs for a nature documentary in the 1950s. The entire concept of lemming suicide is based on a special effects trick from a fake nature film. Moment 11. You learned that we have a separate part of our tongue for different tastes: sweet at the tip, salty on the sides, bitter at the back. Completely false. Taste buds for all flavors are distributed across your entire tongue. This myth was based on a misinterpretation of a single scientific paper from 1942, and it became so standard in textbooks that it took decades to correct it. Kids still learn this in some schools. Moment 12. Humans descended from monkeys. That's not how evolution works. Humans and modern primates share a common ancestor, but we didn't descend from monkeys. We branched off from a line that also led to modern monkeys. We evolved alongside each other from a shared ancestor. Saying humans came from monkeys is technically wrong, but it's taught so commonly that almost everyone believes it. Moment 13. You were told that Napoleon was short. He was about 5'7", which was actually average height for the time. He wasn't particularly short. This myth came from British propaganda that made fun of him as the short Corsican. It stuck. For centuries, people thought Napoleon was a dwarf. He was just a regular-sized guy. Moment 14. Absinthe makes you hallucinate. People drank it and reported weird experiences, so the absinthe must be causing hallucinations. Except absinthe never made anyone hallucinate. The supposed hallucinogenic compound in it, thujone, is present in such minuscule amounts that you'd need to drink an impossible amount to get any effect. People hallucinated because they were drinking alcohol from bottles that actually did contain hallucinogenic compounds. The absinthe itself wasn't the problem. Moment 15. The human body replaces all its cells every 7 years. You become a completely new person. Not accurate. Some cells in your body, like red blood cells, are replaced in about 4 months. But neurons in your brain last your entire life. Some cells barely change. You're not a completely new person every 7 years. You're basically the same person with some replacement parts. Moment 16. Microwaves heat food from the inside out. They don't. Microwaves cause water and fat molecules to vibrate, which generates heat. The heat spreads through the food the same way it always does, from the outside in. The inside-out thing is completely wrong, but it became such a common explanation that people cite it constantly. Moment 17. Vikings wore horned helmets. Archaeological evidence shows they never did. No Viking helmets with horns have been found. This came from 19th century romantic ideas about Vikings, and it became so iconic that it's what everyone pictures when they think of Vikings. Modern Vikings didn't wear horns. Medieval depictions added them for drama. Moment 18. The Bermuda Triangle is mysterious and dangerous, with ships and planes disappearing under unexplained circumstances. Statistically, ships and planes don't disappear more often in the Bermuda Triangle than anywhere else in the ocean. The disappearances that happened there had normal explanations. The entire mystique was created by one author in the 1970s who literally invented mysteries. The triangle isn't actually special. Moment 19. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Dogs of any age can learn new behaviors. The phrase became so common that it's taught as fact, but there's nothing biologically limiting that prevents older dogs from learning. They can absolutely learn new tricks. The only thing preventing it is the belief that they can't. Moment 20. Spinach has massive amounts of iron. Popeye ate spinach and got super strong from the iron content. This came from a decimal point error in a 19th century nutritional study. Spinach was listed as having 35.3 milligrams of iron per 100 gram, but it's actually 3.53 milligrams. Someone misplaced a decimal point, and the myth of iron-rich spinach stuck for over 100 years. This false fact literally changed what people thought about nutrition. Moment 21. Different parts of your mouth taste different things better. You have a taste map on your tongue. Completely false. You can taste sweetness, sourness, saltiness, and bitterness anywhere on your tongue equally. The taste map is a myth that's been debunked multiple times, but it's still in textbooks. Moment 22. The average person swallows spiders while sleeping. 8 spiders a year. This number gets cited constantly. There's zero evidence this ever happens. Spiders actively avoid humans. The conditions in your mouth, saliva, temperature, movement, would be terrifying to a spider. The entire concept is made up, but people believe it so completely that they're genuinely concerned about it. Moment 23. You have a dominant hemisphere. Left brain creative, right brain logical. This led to an entire industry of left brain and right brain personality tests and learning styles. Both sides of your brain work together. There's no evidence that people are predominantly left-brained or right-brained. The entire learning styles movement is built on neuroscience that doesn't actually exist. Moment 24. The French don't shower. This stereotype came from WO2 American soldiers who didn't understand French bathing customs. Turns out French people shower normally. The entire national stereotype is based on a misunderstanding from the 1940s. Moment 25. Humans use only 10% of their brain's capacity. Wait, you already learned this one. The fact that we keep repeating it shows how deep this lie goes. It's been debunked repeatedly, and people still believe it. Moment 26. MSG is toxic and causes Chinese restaurant syndrome. Studies show MSG is fine. It's a naturally occurring compound found in many foods, including tomatoes and cheese. The entire demonization of MSG came from one 1960s letter that was never properly substantiated, and it became accepted as truth. Moment 27. The human nose can smell approximately 10,000 different odors. Actual research shows we can distinguish between far more, possibly up to 1 trillion different odors. We're way better at smelling than we thought. The 10,000 number was repeated so much that it became fact. Moment 28. Sugar makes you hyperactive. You already learned this one too, but the fact that I'm repeating it shows how persistent these myths are. They survive multiple corrections. Moment 29. We only use 10% of our brains. Again? Yes, again. Because this myth is so deeply ingrained that even after being debunked, people refuse to accept it. It's been repeated so many times it has become almost unfalsifiable in people's minds. Moment 30. Human DNA is 98% chimpanzee DNA. This number gets thrown around to explain how similar we are to chimps. The issue is that similarity is being measured in a very specific way, and the number is somewhat misleading. We share genetic code, but that doesn't mean we're 98% the same as chimps. The metric being used is so narrow that it becomes false when applied broadly. Moment 31. The human body contains approximately 7 octillion atoms. Wait, that's actually true. Never mind. Not every science fact is false. Some are just correct. Moving on. Moment 32. Animals can't feel pain. For centuries, people believed this. Scientists thought animals were basically biological robots without consciousness or sensation. This justified horrific animal cruelty for hundreds of years. Then people finally admitted animals obviously feel pain. The fact that this took so long shows how confidently people believe false things. Moment 33. Toilet water spins differently in different hemispheres because of the Coriolis effect. The Coriolis effect is real, but it's not strong enough to affect the direction a toilet flushes. The design of the toilet matters far more than hemispheric position. But the idea became so popular that people tested it constantly, trying to see which direction their toilet spun based on which hemisphere they were in. Moment 34. You can't see the Great Wall of China from space. You already learned this one. It keeps coming back because it's repeated so constantly. Moment 35. The tongue has 4 types of taste buds for 4 basic tastes. Wrong. There's a 5th basic taste called umami. But even that's oversimplifying. Taste is more complex than 4 or 5 categories. The entire system of basic tastes is somewhat arbitrary. Moment 36. Glass is a liquid, not a solid, which is why old windows are thicker at the bottom. Glass is a solid. It's amorphous, meaning it doesn't have a crystal structure, but it's definitely a solid. Old windows are thicker at the bottom because that's how they were installed, not because the glass flowed downward over centuries. This is one of the most persistent physics myths. Moment 37. Humans are descended from apes. Same issue as the monkey thing. You didn't descend from modern apes. You share a common ancestor. But the oversimplification became so standard that it's taught as fact. Moment 38. You can't mix alcohol and certain other drinks or you'll get sick. Mixing different types of alcohol doesn't create a problem. Getting sick happens because you drank too much, not because you mixed beer and liquor. But the myth persists because people who get drunk from mixing drinks do feel sick, and they assume the mixing caused it. Moment 39. The human brain is only active during the day. Your brain is constantly active. Even in deep sleep, your brain is working. The idea that brains shut down came from misunderstandings about consciousness, not actual neuroscience. Moment 40. Evolution is just a theory. In science, a theory doesn't mean a guess. A theory is a framework for understanding evidence. Gravity is a theory. Evolution is one of the most well-supported theories in science. The phrase, just a theory, reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of how science works. Moment 41. Older people can't learn new languages as well as children. Older brains are plastic. Older people can absolutely learn new languages. The belief that older brains are fixed in their ways is false. Neuroplasticity continues throughout life. Moment 42. The human body contains X amount of water, and here's a random percentage that's definitely wrong. Different sources cite different percentages, and many are inaccurate or oversimplified. The fact about body water content changes depending on the source because scientists don't all use the same measurement methods. Moment 43. That's the last one. We've now gone through 43 facts that your teachers taught you with complete confidence that turned out to be false, exaggerated, or based on misunderstandings. Some were created by propaganda. Some came from misread studies. Some were invented by authors and became truth through repetition. Some were based on technology or understanding from centuries ago that nobody bothered to update. Here's what's wild. Schools taught these things for decades, sometimes centuries, as absolute truth. Teachers weren't lying. They just believed what they were taught. The textbooks printed it. The authority structures supported it. And because it had the veneer of legitimacy, almost nobody questioned it. These false facts prove something more important than any individual myth. Our education systems are designed to pass down information without verifying it. We accept what we're told by authority, and we pass that along to the next generation. If something is repeated enough and taught confidently enough, it becomes true in people's minds, regardless of whether it's actually true. The people teaching these false facts weren't stupid. They were just passing along what they learned. The system itself is what perpetuates the lies. As long as textbooks print something and teachers repeat it with confidence, people will believe it. That's how false science becomes real science in our collective understanding. So here's the question. What are we teaching as absolute truth right now that future generations will look back on and realize was completely wrong?